we bring in Instagram's newest influencer, James Ham. How about a round of applause for James Ham,
I saw him,
who posted pictures on his vacation?
What's going on, people?
What's up, man? On KIFM West Sacramento 98.5 FM, KRXQ HD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320. Always live on the free Odyssey app.
And in the chat, our guy, Matt George, I think he's getting a little upset with me because he feels like I'm selling Keegan short. I said Lauri Markkanen is like the highest level of what Keegan could be as a ball player. Lauri Markkanen is an all-star. Markkanen's all-star. Like I said, that ain't shade. I just think when you talk about style of play, I don't look at Keegan and Lauri as this super creators type of ball players. They kind of get it within the flow, pass, kick out, one dribble, get to the cup, things of that nature. And yeah, I think that's what Lauri Markkanen is.
Yeah, my opinion on Lauri, I've always liked Lauri Markkanen. I think he's like a wonderful talent. I think that when he became available and was just sitting out there, and the Kings had a mid-level exception a couple of years ago, and he had to wait until like August to sign a contract, I kept saying, like, why are the Kings not just going out and signing him? And that's when he ended up signing with, what was it, Cleveland? Where was it where he signed and it was a budget deal, and then he ends up in
Cleveland.
Yeah. So for me, like, look, I think he checks so many of the boxes. The one difference and distinction I would make between him and Keegan is, like, offensively, I do agree with you. He is like, they're somewhat similar. I think that, maybe Markkanen has had enough time to show a little bit more of his game, but Keegan is a much, much better defender. And I think will always be a better defender. And I just don't think that that's been Markkanen's sort of, like, focus. I'd even say that of the three names that we'll banning about today, whether it's Markkanen or it's Ingram or it's Kuzma, I would say Markkanen is probably the worst defender of the three. But who knows? Like, I still love him as a prospect. You're talking about a 7-footer who can shoot the three ball like crazy, who averages 8 rebounds a game. Like, I like, very, very good fit alongside Domantas Sabonis.
Of the two names that the Kings have been linked to, we'll spread it out a little bit further. We don't have any official reports that they've been linked to Kyle Kuzma, but we'll open it up to him because we've talked a lot about him. Your buddy over on the Kings beat, Sean Cunningham, reported over the weekend that there are trade conversations, or have been trade conversations involving the Kings and the Pelicans and Brandon Ingram. And you and I reported this morning that everyone has quickly followed that the Lauri Markkanen, that the Utah Jazz, at the Sacramento Kings, there's conversations there. Of those three, which one entices you the most? Which one do you think makes the Sacramento Kings the best? And I know outgoing is a part of that. We're going to eliminate Keegan Murray from any conversations when we have this discussion, hypothetical discussion.
I think it's so incredibly complex. Like, I think all of them have their pluses and minuses. The fact that Markkanen and Ingram are both on expiring contracts is a huge issue. And just so people know out there, when you trade for a player who's entering the final year of a deal like this, you can offer him a 2-year deal with 5% raises, and it like, neither Ingram or Markkanen are going to take those deals. That's what you can offer him on day one, a 2-year deal with 5% raises. After 6 months of being with your team, so we're talking about early January, you can go into full-fledged negotiations on a long-term contract that would put them, a 4 or 5-year contract, whatever it might be. And so any deal that you do to get those players is a huge risk. And it's why I don't know that I buy like 3-4 first-round picks for either one of them. That might be the going rate, but the fact that they can just walk away next summer, that's a big, big problem. So on face value, I think Kuzma is cheaper to acquire. I think he's cheaper contractually because he's already locked up at 23.5, 21.5, and 19.5 million over the next 3 years. Markkanen and Ingram, you're both paying like a 4-year like 50, I mean, like a close to $200 million deal for either one of them. So you're going to have to pay those guys where Kuzma is under contract and already more affordable. But also, I'd say that the downfall is that Kuzma has chosen to play for bad teams, and not only that, but he also, he's a player who is a little older than the other two, and so each of them have sort of their pluses and minuses. I think Kuzma is probably the easiest guy to get. Markkanen is probably the most difficult guy to get, and I think right now Ingram is probably a guy that makes the most sense.
Real quick, Casey, why? Because we were just having this discussion. Why do you think Markkanen is the most difficult to get?
I think he's most difficult to get because that's Danny Ainge in a nutshell.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah. Danny Ainge likes to rip everybody off except for the Lakers, and like I've never understood that, but that's just kind of the way Danny Ainge is. And like there isn't a general manager out there who puts other players' names, other teams' players out there as much as he does, and using whatever method possible to do that. So like for years they were on the verge of getting Harrison Barnes like at any moment and never got Harrison Barnes. He's still in Sacramento. I think Danny Ainge is, I mean, he does his job really well. He's stockpiling trade assets and draft assets for sure. I just think that that's going to be the guy that they believe they can try to get a king's ransom for, where I don't know that there's a huge market right now for Ingram for whatever reason, which doesn't make that much sense to me. But after the Philadelphia situation kind of dried up, it feels like the next step is like who are you competing for Brandon Ingram? And that's not to say that someone else isn't going to come in and swoop him and steal him away from the Kings, but I'm not sure who they're competing with because we literally haven't seen another name mentioned for Brandon Ingram services.
One of the things when you were talking about like the players that are on expiring deals and things of that nature, Damian brought up a great point. And maybe I'd be willing to play a little game of chicken if I were the Kings or somebody else like that. Turn down this money. If I'm talking to Lauri Markkanen or Brandon Ingram, yeah, I know I traded for you without any type of promise or anything, and even going back to Pascal Siakam and all this other stuff and what they told you they weren't going to do and all this other stuff allegedly. Turn down this money. I'm telling you, I'm going to offer you this type of money, and I want to see you turn it down and take less money to leave Sacramento. And I think that's a play as well. You know what I mean? Like to just get them in the building, have the opportunity to offer them the most amount of money, and then say, I want you to turn it down. We don't even know if Donovan Mitchell wants to be in Cleveland, but we're up. He ain't going to turn down that super max that he's being offered. So I think that's also something that is part of the thinking when you try to draft one of those guys. Yes, they are on expiring deals, but you give them the best opportunity to make the most amount of money that they're looking for.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I would also say that, like in my time in Sacramento, very seldom does a player leave on when they have this opportunity like this. Like, I mean, we can go back to like the Mike Bibby, Chris Webber days where they signed extensions here, but also Rudy Gay signed an extension here. DeMarcus Cousins signed extensions here. De'Aaron Fox has signed extensions here. I think once you get to Sacramento, it's a lot different than you think.
Hell, Domas. We were concerned about Domas, and not only did he sign an extension, he signed a weird one.
Oh yeah. He renegotiated and extended.
Yes, very good. You chose your words carefully. Nice job there, Hammer.
So yeah, like that's where I think everyone needs to understand, like being in a city where you feel love, where the fan base is incredible, where the weather's beautiful. I wouldn't want to like trade for a guy and bring him in this week per se, just because he's going to be like, I'm never coming back here ever again. It's hot as hell. But at the same time, I think that there's something about Sacramento that when people get here, and like they've done a really good job of building a culture here, whether, with Mike Brown, the culture has been great, but even the Monty McNair era, like the culture has been good. And I think if you walk in the door, you're Brandon Ingram or you're Lauri Markkanen, and you're playing next to Sabonis, who is no nonsense, and you're playing next to De'Aaron Fox, who's quick-witted and super funny. Malik Monk is here long-term. You can see the talent in Keegan Murray. I think someone would have a tough time walking away afterwards. Maybe the next contract, they wouldn't want to stay, but you never know. For me right now, I think if you go out and get any of these guys, they'll fit in and they'll find a way to be happy and will probably be around long term. But that doesn't mean it's not a risk, and it doesn't mean that you want to give up 3 first-round picks for a guy who might be there for one season.
Shout out to our brother Garrett Temple, who got the latest Woj alert that infuriated Kenny. Garrett headed to Toronto Raptors. That's our man, though. Well, always good to see Garrett in the league, man. He's
always.
He's one of the good dudes, man.
He is one of the good dudes. One of my favorite players to ever cover.
Agree. Wholeheartedly agree. Hammer, are you concerned it's been this quiet for Sacramento? 24 hours now into free agency.
No, I mean, what do you mean? They got Alex Len.
They did. No, that's important. I think everyone, 50 Cent this joint. They liked Alex.
I like Alex.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, I would say this when it comes to what's happening right now. Like, people need to calm down a little bit because this is the first.
James, we're ready to panic.
It's the first year you can trade the MLE. So the Kings have, as of right now, really close to a full MLE that they can offer a team, like a team in trade for a player. And so I think that aspect of this has allowed the Kings to not panic, right? To sit back and just go, okay, even if we miss out on some of the guys that the fan base would like, there's still going to be opportunities out there to go add the piece. And we don't know what a trade would look like at all at this point. So just because we're lining up some magical trade in our mind of what this would look like or that would look like, it doesn't matter it doesn't mean that like 1 or 2 players from the other team won't get included and that the deal won't be like a 5-player deal, not just like a 2-for-1. And I say that because when you make a trade like that, it's possible that you get the backup small forward or you get the backup point guard that you also need in addition to the big name player that you traded for. So you can balance your roster in so many different ways. And, like guys like Caleb Martin are still out there, but like, look at all the guys around the league who are making like $12.8 million and less. And all of those players out there you can fit them into the mid-level exception and trade for those players if somebody wants to give up somebody. So if, again, the Lakers end up way over the cap or they're not comfortable with their situation and you want to call them and say, hey, we'll take Jared Vanderbilt off your plate and we'll give you a 2nd-round pick, they might do that just to save the money and to go chase someone else. So there's all of these mechanisms in place now where you can go and get a player down the road that might make sense to you. And you can use those exceptions all the way up until the trade deadline. And so just because you don't get someone now doesn't mean that you could get midway through the season and be like, man, we are really, really soft at this position. Let's go out and get that type of player. And so, like, again, there's a lot of flexibility here.
Do you think the Kings' main focus to improving their team this year, this offseason, is through a trade? And I only ask that because a lot of people are like, they're not doing anything in free agency, and even the marginal guys are getting picked up. Like the Kings aren't doing anything, and I feel they're looking at it like we're trying to get this trade done. That's going to be our move. Yes, we may sign an Alex Len, or at the beginning of August, maybe we'll sign somebody to be a backup point guard or a camp invite. But the free agent market isn't necessarily where we're trying to do work this summer. We're trying to get this trade done.
No, that's what they're doing right now. Their focus is very much on trying to swing for the fences, right? They've put themselves in a position they believe where they should have enough assets, whether it's expiring contracts or whether it's players on shorter term deals like the 2-year deals for Herter and Barnes. They think that they put themselves in a position to take those pieces, add them to draft capital, and come away with a I would say like a top 3 or top 4 player in their own rotation.
Hmm.
And that's where I think the Kings really can improve. If all of a sudden you go out and you get a Markkanen or you get an Ingram, they're like your third best player, like on day one. And then all of a sudden that means that that Keegan Murray or Malik Monk are your fourth and fifth best players. And then that's when this team really starts to take off. If you're going to go out there right now and try to find your sixth or seventh best player and miss out on your third best player because you're playing in the wrong pool, then that's not good business. And so you can address the other situations down the road. I think again, Jalen McDaniels is it's a low budget, low risk. Hey, worst case scenario, we at least have a backup here that we can throw out there. Now let's see what big piece we can add to this puzzle. At least you have some additional length and athleticism that you didn't have before. And again, I think Alex Len is the same thing. Like, now you have a backup center.
I like Alex.
I like
Alex is a good backup
Oh,
center.
I love Alex Len. Like,
I really do. I think I've been advocating for that. I'm like, hey man, just bring Alex Len back.
He's a good dude.
And do you think this is laid out and maybe in terms of like not individual players like Laurie A, Kuzma B, Ingram C, or whatever order you want to put them in, but like one of the marquee trades at A? Do you think they have a plan B? Like, especially now that we're into this and free agents are starting to sign. Do you think they have? All right, here, this is what we're going to pivot to, or all right, we're gonna explore this trade market in September or October, and then again in January, and then again in February, and that's just kind of where they're at with this.
I think that they're pushing all their chips in right now. They're trying to land the player that they want. And I get it. Like, we keep talking about this. I think that they have plan A, plan B, plan C. That doesn't mean that any of them work out. Like, we've talked about this so many times. There are times where I think that this front office has been too cautious, right? But the names that we're hearing are all upgrades on what the Kings have right now. There's no question. Like, we're not hearing some rando that doesn't really move the needle at all. And if that does come up, you would hope that would be like a secondary or a third move. That's like, okay, well, they went and did that as well. But for me, like, they have like sat here and been patient and been cautious and overly cautious too many times, in my opinion. But you don't have any more time to do that. Like, you didn't make the playoffs. And as of today, I hate to tell this, like, they haven't improved the roster. Like, we can talk all we want about, how good, Devin Carter might be, but Devin Carter is probably going to be really good in year 2 and year 3, and erratic and a rookie in year 1. And you have to expect that, right? He could step on the court and be way better than we think, and he could play 20 minutes a night, but that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a guy who's going to step on the court and might be able to play 35 minutes a night as your starting shooting guard. Maybe that happens, but there's no guarantee of that. And even still, that's like your eighth and ninth man in the rotation at this point. The Kings have to find a way to improve the top 5 of the rotation. And, they don't have the talent that some of the teams above them have, like from top to bottom. And that's okay. Like, you built a really good roster that finished third in the West, but the other teams also continue to build and continue to get better and continue to build chemistry and organically grew and got better than you. Oklahoma City, Minnesota, they got better than you. So how do you respond to that? And I think that's what we're looking at with Monty and Wes at this point. They've had enough time to build something, and what we can't do is walk away into this season or this, like the second half year training camp and all that stuff with basically what Monty McNair did in his first season, which was he went out and got Glenn Robinson III and he got Hassan Whiteside. Like, that's at this point, that's the equivalent of getting Jalen McDaniels and Alex Len. Like, they can be functional pieces, but they're not moving any needle at all in the win-loss column. So how do you go out and get better from here on out? And it's a little bit of pressure, but I mean, like, look, that's the job.
Yeah, that's just what it is. Ham, hopefully you can ease some concerns from a number of different people by answering this question.
I don't
I'm
know
about
what
to
you're
ask
about
you.
to ask, but it'd be so awesome if James just said, "No, we need to panic." Is James the most level-headed guy here? No, it is time to panic.
James, do you see any scenario in any of these possible deals or players that the Kings are trading for that involves Keegan Murray? Because I don't really see one.
I don't either, but like no one is untradeable.
Panic.
Like, no, I mean, that's the rule of the league, right?
Yeah.
Like no one is untradeable. And like, look, if you had to do one move and give up Keegan, I would hope that you had another move that would make an equally big splash. And I don't know that. I mean, it's difficult to see how they would give up on him. He's 23 years old, going on 24. He's proven to be a very, very good two-way player. Whether he can become a great two-way player, I think that there's still a lot of hope around the team. But like, you don't like if Giannis comes up for grabs, and yeah, Keegan Murray's gone. Like those are so that's where I mean, like there's a deal out there that maybe that
Yeah.
that you have
And
to get involved.
real quick, Jay, I'm not saying just in general. We're having a conversation. We all know the names that have been involved in these discussions. Ingram, Kuzma, Markkanen. I'm really focusing on Levine. I'll throw him in there just for
The
whatever.
ghetto.
But
You
those
got
four
Beverly Hills, and then you got the ghetto.
those 3 or 4 players specifically, I'd be shocked if Keegan was involved in a trade for any of those guys, considering contract situations and all this other stuff. I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the end of the Insiders when you were on with us on the handoff. Like there's something like people need to understand that Keegan Murray, he's barely 2 years younger than Brandon Ingram, but Ingram has been in the league for 8 years, and Keegan's been in the league for 2. And so what that means is that Keegan has 2 more years on his rookie scale deal, and then if he were to somehow get a max rookie scale extension, you're looking at a player who would make like 30, 32, 34, 36, which is what Brandon Ingram is going into right now in his 9th season, a $36 million deal. And then Brandon Ingram's going to go get 45 or whatever on the backside here. He's a guy that you have under team control for like 7 years still, or 6 years, depending on what kind of extension you give him. You shouldn't trade for a guy to speed up the process when Keegan isn't that far away from being part of the process. Where you would trade Keegan is if Donovan Mitchell became available, or if some star level player that you can't say no to says, I want to go play for Sacramento. And that team says the first call is like, the only way we're getting this done is if Keegan Murray's involved. That's to me, it's not Brandon Ingram. It's not Lauri Markkanen. And it's not Kyle Kuzma. And I even like maybe 2 years ago, well, a year and a half ago, I asked very specifically in a conversation off the record with somebody in the walls, like, would you trade Keegan for Lauri Markkanen when he was an all-star? And the answer was no. They believe that Keegan will be better than Lauri Markkanen. And I still think that the team has that understanding that he can be equal to or better than, and certainly not someone that you would trade when, again, Ingram and Markkanen are both on 1-year deals. That's just not going to happen. And Kuzma, like for all, like just not to be rude, but Kuzma is not good enough for you to trade Keegan Murray for.
That's right.
Like you have a core. Your core is 4 guys. It's De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, and Domantas Sabonis. How do you add a 5th? How do you add a 6th? How do you add? And that again, I don't want to be disrespectful to Trey Lyles or someone like that. That's not what I'm saying. And I think some people like took it the wrong way when I said, well, Jalen McDaniels can be a backup for you. As of right now, you still have Trey Lyles, you still have Keegan Murray. If you go out and trade Harrison Barnes for one of these other guys, it's okay for him to be your 4th forward, with the potential for you to do 3 guard sets and that 4th forward never even getting on the court hardly at all. I think that like Jalen McDaniels can play. He just probably won't play a ton of minutes for you.
We'll come back. There's a lot more to talk about as nothing continues to happen with the Sacramento Kings. But let me tell you, nothing is happening fast. It's moving nowhere. It is moving nowhere. We'll continue to talk about it as if something's going to happen. We'll keep looking at our stupid watches and our stupid phones every time they vibrate, waiting for something to happen. But we'll do it together as a family because that's what we do. Steeler and KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320.
Two things. Number one, I want to get not mad. I'm not mad, but I want to go to the block button for our guy in the chat. But I actually respect that he stands on his own business, and that's bad news. Sour grapes 916.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, he tells you who he is. He ain't gonna say nothing positive. I respect that. You won't get put in timeout. Bad news because you just being who you are.
I'm afraid
I'm
I've
not
got
mad at
some
that.
bad news. Y'all remember about bad news?
I'm not mad at that at all. Bad news. I'm not mad at that at all. I respect it.
Yeah.
Well, they were 3 quarters gone.
That's funny. Yeah, someone asked if Jalen McDaniels can shoot. Jalen McDaniels had a rough shooting year last year, but his previous couple of seasons, not that bad. So, yeah, he shot 33% with Charlotte, but that was like forcing up a bunch of extra shots because that team was horrible. He shot 40% for Philadelphia in 24 games. He shot 38% over 55 games for Charlotte. So I'd say in his last couple of years, he's not horrible. And last time I checked, the teams that he's played on, outside of, again, the situation in Philadelphia where he played with Embiid, the teams that he's played for don't have a passer like Domantas Sabonis. It gets you wide open shots. So I would look at the 40% he shot in Philadelphia with Embiid, slightly weight it heavier than I would seasons in Charlotte where, he's playing as a guy who's miscast. So 16% last season, but he played 0 minutes. It's impossible to get in a rhythm when you play, over 50 games, you're playing 500 minutes. That's just not a lot of basketball. 538 minutes. I like the sample size of 1,900 minutes a lot better, where he shot 33.2%. That seems a little bit better. Or even the 419 minutes he played with Philadelphia, where he shot 40%. So. Could we have gotten more for Davon Mitchell? No. Frank Anwar? No. Yeah, I mean, Davon Mitchell, his value is just dropping with the Kings. And I say that because the closer he gets to free agency and you have to pay him money, that's when it becomes a problem. I don't know where Lonzo Ball lands. Does anyone care? Not to be rude, but does he still play basketball? Because I don't think he does.
If he's able to play, I'd like to have Lonzo Ball here if he's able to play. I see you, Stephen Brown. Man, oh man. Hey, I wanted to make sure I read this while Damian was here because he would feel the same way I would. Did you see the crap that's happening in Golden State? Not with the coach this time, but with Klay Thompson.
They are burying his ass. Yeah, this little move that the Warriors have been doing all day is whack.
That is
they
ridiculous.
burying
You see
Klay
that? So you
Thompson.
saw the Jason Dumas.
I did.
Come on,
And I like
man.
Jay.
And I'm
Jay,
not. Yeah, I'm not
Jason
even
Dumas,
saying
yeah,
nothing
yeah,
about
yeah.
Jason. He's
Yeah,
doing his job.
that's
He's
right.
doing. It's not about
Yeah,
him.
that's our guy.
This is on the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, they are
That's wrong.
burying Klay Thompson
That's
on
wrong,
his way
man.
out.
That is wrong.
Are they doing the exit strategy?
Yeah. Well, I'll read. Then James. Then I'll read it real quick, and we can talk about the Kings. Jason Dumas was on 95.7 The Game, and he said Klay has been equally as exhausting behind the scenes. It's not as loud. It's not as loud because it's not you stomping on someone's chest. If he's slamming stuff on the bench or sulking and doing that on the court, how do you think he is in practice? How do you think he is in the locker room? It's been uncomfortable. It just doesn't come out as loudly as Draymond Green.
That's after they have put out the report that Paz was going to start and Klay was going to be a bench player. Like, well, what's the purpose of putting that out now? You want to make sure you bury Klay on the way out.
And like I said, I'm not even here to say the reports, Jason, the people who are wrong or untrue. There's no need to put that out
Jason
there.
Got that information from somebody.
No, I'm saying that somebody could be telling exactly what happened. There's no need to put that out there. I don't put that out there. Not to somebody like Klay Thompson, not to anybody really, but somebody like Klay Thompson.
What's their playbook?
And what
They've done this before. What'd they do to Mark Jackson? Same thing. You're gonna bury him.
That sucks.
This week.
I'm just slightly surprised with Klay. You would expect them to be a little bit more reverent.
You would
like
think.
That's not to say that like he's a moody dude. Like the whole Klay on a boat, Klay with his dog, and even I remember last year with Steve Kerr was asked about Klay Thompson, and he said, "Well, like Klay is kind of a surly dude. Like he's quiet and." Like my impression of him the first time I met him was at a pre-draft workout, and somebody asked him about he had just been popped for marijuana in college, and he did not take that question well at all. And it was like, oh, I see an unpleasant side of somebody. So yeah, I don't know. I've been in their locker room. He was never rude or anything to me. But it doesn't mean he wasn't a surly dude.
Popped for marijuana is an incredible sentence in 2024. Yeah.
But
that was 2011.
I know. That's
you're
what
right.
I mean.
Yeah,
It's an incredible sentence in 2024.
You're right. Like I believe everything that Jason said. Like I believe that actually happened. My thing is, there's no need to put that out there.
Yeah,
that's foul.
You tried to re-sign him, and he said no. Like he left. So regardless of all that other stuff, like you were willing to re-sign him. And he said no. And by all accounts, he took less money.
Yeah. I don't know how much less money he took. I don't know.
Well, okay, you're right. He took less money annually. Whether he took less money over the term of the deal, that remains to be seen, as everything seemed to hover around 2 years. But at least those were the reports that were out there. And that's all that there is to talk about as it pertains to Northern California basketball. I mean, we could break down DeAnthony Melton.
Nice signing.
Sure. Chris Paul headed to San Antonio. So
I'll ask both of you guys this real quick, because I mentioned it a little bit on Sports Sunday, but I want to know what you think, Damian, and you, James Ham. Did the Warriors completely fumble the Jordan Poole situation because they got looks like nothing out of it?
Oh, I'll be
Like the thought
completely
was,
honest. They fumbled that when they got him to sign a contract
well,
that was
look,
obscene.
The thought was they made the
got
trade and they got off. Maybe that's all they got. But why didn't you trade Chris Paul at the deadline? And you could have
I don't.
players,
that's a great
you could have
question.
players
to
get back in return for Jordan Poole.
Yeah, I don't know. Because any team at the deadline would have known, and that's why I kept saying he's not going to finish the year as a Warrior, would have known they could have cut him the day after the season ended and not paid him. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I think the team was delusional enough to believe they could compete. That 2022 title ruined their line of thinking. They thought we're still a championship team. All right. Hey, you won a championship. That's all that matters. But
I also think when early in the season that he was so effective with the young guys off the bench. And so it kind of got you into this mode like, oh, just wait till he gets back, because then he got hurt. He missed a bunch of
And he
time.
got
You're
hurt.
like,
Yeah.
just wait till he gets back. Just wait till he gets back. He might be able to galvanize the second unit, and then we got a shot. And that just didn't happen. Like when he got back, it was like, okay. I mean, I understand fully, and I don't blame the Spurs for going in there and bringing him in. Michael Malone told me one time that Chris Paul is the greatest leader he's ever been around. He's like, it's not even close. And he's like, I was around young LeBron James, and like, trust me, he's like, it's not even close. Like, that is the leader in the NBA. He is a incredible leader. And for him to go in there and be able to do pick and rolls with Victor Wembanyama, but also to be a coach on the floor and to teach Victor Wembanyama how to be a leader, I think is a really, really good thing for Spurs. And I'm not a Chris Paul guy at all. Like he like DeMarcus Cousins almost like strangled him a couple of times, and like I wouldn't have like faulted him.
Which is always funny. Like he wouldn't even let Isaiah Thomas shake hands with him.
Oh no, yeah.
That is an all-time Kings moment. No. Over here.
I was like, bro, what are you doing?
Literally wouldn't let him shake hands with Isaiah Thomas or with
Chris Paul. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, Hammer. We're just gonna sit here and wait.
We're just gonna wait.
I thought he was about to ask the tough question.
No, we're just gonna sit here and wait. That's what we're all gonna do. We're gonna sit here and we're going to wait together. I guess the thing Kings fans can be optimistic about is Ingram, Laurie, Kuz.
Go ahead.
The ghetto.
Boy, if he comes to Sacramento, I'm gonna have to explain.
Cam Johnson.
None of them have been traded. So it's not like the Kings are missing out on anything. Like nothing with those guys is happening.
And real quick, because James would probably want to add to that. I don't believe, this is just me then, I don't believe Monty made that pick on Wednesday night without knowing he had something coming down the road. Like I think a deal is going to be made. I don't know which one, but I think a deal is going to be made here.
I don't disagree. I think that they're pretty far down this pathway that you almost have to make a deal of some sort. And again, like I've advocated this so many times, don't make a deal just to make a deal. Make a deal because it makes you better and your team's not good enough. Like if the goal is to win an NBA championship, your team is not there. Like that's just being honest, right? And I think that they understand that as well. Like I've had conversations with people there and they understand that they have to get better this offseason. There's no question with that. That they are going to try to be aggressive. And I think your point, Damian, is very well taken. Like there could come a point where Lauri Markkanen gets traded and it's for Jonathan Kuminga and Kevon Looney and 4 first-round picks. And we can all just look at that and go, okay, they got more.
I don't know about that. That's going to sting. But not the return. It's going to sting because it's the Warriors. And that was one thing that we were talking about earlier is like Danny is going to milk this. Like he can publicly pit. And that's why I think the Keegan Murray stuff is out there from Jake Fisher is he can pit the Kings against the Warriors through different people.
No, I totally get that. But at the same time, if they land him and the Kings don't have what the Warriors gave up to give up, then that's okay. You lost. Like again, we talk about the PJ Washington, and Daniel Gafford additions to the Dallas Mavericks last year. The Kings could, if they would have given up 2 first-round picks to go get those 2 players. Number one, they would not have been playing in the Western Conference Finals like the Dallas Mavericks. Number 2, they would have had nothing to move this offseason. Their offseason plans, their next offseason plans are completely shot and done. They can't do anything. So for me, like, look, we have to see what happens and what the deals are. If they're, and you can say, hey, you should have got Derek Jones Jr. for 3-year, $30 million. Okay, number one, Derek Jones Jr. turned down the Kings like at least one other time. when he signed a free agent deal with Portland and shunned the Kings. So maybe he would never sign here, but at the same time, like, we don't know what else is out there, what else is available, whether, like, again, a Caleb Martin is still available. What if you can go get him? What if one of these other players, what if your fallback is a Cam Johnson, and you go make a deal for him and Dorian Finney-Smith, and who knows, maybe that does move the needle. Maybe that does make this team better. But I want to see what it is if you do lose out on some of these players. Did you lose out on a Kyle Kuzma because somebody else gave up less than what you were going to offer, and you just wouldn't offer more? And that's where I would judge somebody more harshly, is if, again, all things were considered, they went out and got a different 25-year-old shooting guard with 2 years left on his contract and got a first round pick and a second, and the Kings were only offering Kevin Huerter and a first, and not, and the other team was offering a first and a second. And so that's where I would be like, okay, like, look, if you're going to lose out on a deal because you barely got outbid, that doesn't make any sense. If you lose out on a deal because someone gives up 4 first round picks and you don't have 4 first round picks to give up, it is what it is.
Is there anyone on the free agent market that is out there that kind of maybe we look into this?
I mean, there are players that I wouldn't mind having on the team, but like, the difference makers are all via trade, which, hey, let's be honest, the Kings have always had to go via trade. Like, we've talked about this how many times now? The best free agent signing ever is Vlade.
327. This is the 328.
The second best is probably Malik Monk. And like, so, like, look, the free agent market is tough for the Kings. That doesn't mean I wouldn't mind, going after, if you felt like you had a need, which at this point the Kings don't. But what is it? Gary Trent Jr., they're saying, could sign for less than the mid-level. Okay. Kyle Anderson, someone brings up. Oh, okay. None of that. Like, those are fine. They don't move the needle. You have to have the other move first, and then one of those moves.
Hey, James, we didn't get to talk to you after the draft and everything, man, and Devin Carter and
James came back from Cabo without a tan.
Oh no, I've got one. I just
no, screenshot it. There we go. Where damn it, Zabo, Dr. Davis.
It's just right here.
It's the OnlyFans version of
I love it.
I work really hard to not get burned.
The difference between James Ham at home and James Ham in Cabo is in Cabo he just wears a bigger hat.
Oh yeah, no, I wear sleeves. Like, when I'm in Cabo, I've got a
James can't even go out in the sun.
No, I take my shirt off for like 10 minutes and go out in the water, and I already have sunscreen on. I already waited like 20 minutes for the sunscreen to dry, and then I go out in the water, and then I get out of the water and put my shirt back on, because I learned the hard way. You can't even trust the umbrellas. I'll get burnt through an umbrella in the shade. So yeah, not great.
That is a
James's war against the sun.
Hey, but look, no lie. If you look at the little, we can look at our little numbers up there. Numbers have gone up since James gave that little peep show.
Well, that's a shoot. James have
gone up.
James, show us a little bit more, and we might get to 5,000.
We was at 4,800. We now at 49, bro. The numbers gone up.
Ain't no shame in D-Lo and KC getting the numbers up.
But
first ever 5,000 live stream show, because James is showing a little.
It's going up again. Oh. It's 49, 18, 19.
We can do it.
The word is spreading. The word is spreading.
We're going to go widescreen just in case James gets real crazy.
You guys are ridiculous.
Oh, man. But, James, man, just your thoughts on Devin Carter, his fit with the Kings, potential fit with the Kings or whatever. And, what you think of the player?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I really, really like the draft pick. I mean, I think what you're getting is sort of a mature prospect that can step in and play minutes in year one. Someone said he's better than Davion. He'll be better than Davion in year 2, most likely, but in year 1, I don't know if he'll be better than Davon Mitchell. Davon Mitchell is a perfectly fine player, a very, very good defensive player. But the things that he brings, he brings like that grit and energy and sort of mentality that the Kings need. He also has that crazy long wingspan, which, it's 6'2" with what a 6'9" and 3/4 wingspan. Like I'm in. Like that's great. The Kings need that type of long, athletic defender. That's sort of the problem I had with Davion. It's not that Davion's 6 foot tall; it's that he's 6 foot tall and his wingspan might be like 6'1", 6'2", and that's a problem. When you're trying to defend bigger guards in the league, and I think he's going to be able to defend all over the place. My concern, like I've said this, but I said it last week on the Insiders, is there are some murmurs about his shoulder and what kind of injury that might be and if he's going to miss time. And we're going to have to wait and see. It's possible that he gets to Sacramento, which he got there last night, right? And they'll put him through a battery of tests. But there was definitely some murmurs, not just before the draft, but even after the draft, that there are some that he does have a shoulder issue, which is why it was asked in Monty McNair's press conference about the shoulder. So, yeah, I think it's worth kind of figuring out. But same time, I really like him. His energy is good. He can shoot the three. 42-inch vert, right? Like he attacks the rim. Just kind of a dog, and the Kings need those guys.
Hey, Dame, real quick. Look at the view.
I saw it.
Come on, man.
No, I saw it.
Come on. Hey,
I saw it.
Show a little more, James.
At this point, James,
I retweeted.
shirt off. Yeah,
I retweeted, just so you know.
Malik Monk Day topped out at 4,100 live viewers today with absolutely nothing happening. We're at 5,100 and soaring because James is showing skin.
And retweeted.
We went from 48 to 51 once James showed a little shoulder.
No, that's all we need. Little James Ham shoulder, and boom.
There he goes again.
We are not.
There he goes again.
We are.
This is not going to be free after a while. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, man.
James, not lead the witness. James, what is your opinion on the Sasha Vezzenkov experiment in Sacramento?
I text Kyle. I think it was on Friday, or like whenever the trade happened. I said my opinion is this: that good, like everybody makes mistakes in the NBA. Every general manager makes mistakes. I mean, like Thomas Robinson instead of Damian Lillard, Jimmer Fredette instead of Klay Thompson, or Ben McLemore instead of Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Everyone makes mistakes, and those are two different general managers right there. The good general managers in the league look at their team, look at their players honestly, assess them properly, and when they're not working or it's not going to work, they pull the plug as quickly as possible. And mistakes in the NBA cost money. They cost you something on the way out the door. It very, very seldom do you see a team make a big mistake and somebody let them off the hook. Just ask the Chicago Bulls right now what they're feeling when everyone is tweeting out that there is absolutely no market for Zach LaVine and they owe him like $190 million or whatever it is. So I would say like the Kings made some mistakes, and the number 9 pick in the draft, I don't think that Davon Mitchell is a bad player. He wasn't built for this system, this type of offense, this type of flow offense. He's a half court player, and that's okay. Now you found him a good spot where he can go try to do that. When you got Sasha Vezzenkov here, it was a question that I asked before they actually went over and signed him. Is he better than Trey Lyles? And if he's not, is he enough different than Trey Lyles that you're not going to have a redundancy issue? And the answer was absolutely not. He's not enough different. He's too redundant. And so my point is that a couple of second round picks and a 1 year of Jalen McDaniels to move those players, that's what a good team does. And not only that, a good team does it as early as possible because that money is drying up quick. And the fact that the Kings did it before this new season started, absolutely brilliant move by the Kings. and those guys just weren't part of the plan, and that's okay. What's not okay is to let them sit on the bench for an extra 2 or 3 years, like what the Kings did with Kenny Thomas years ago. Like, where he just sat there and like, what's he doing over there? He makes $8 or $9 million a year. Oh, nothing. He ain't playing.
Plotting El Rey.
Yeah. Yeah. Or Costa Koufos. Like, you just ask Costa Koufos to sit there and not play for 3 years or 2 years, whatever it was. Like, there's no value in that. Move the player when you get in a situation. And this is the second time they did it. The first one hurt much worse when they had to trade Rashawn Holmes with the first round pick. But a couple of seconds, like, it got you out from like $8.5 million in salary cap. And it allows you to go out and do more right now. It frees you to do more, or at least feel like you can do more.
People were bugging out over the Rashawn tweet because I think they all read it wrong.
What was that?
Rashawn, I think he opted out and then re-signed.
Uh-huh.
He basically re-signed for the same exact amount, with next year having 250 million, or excuse me, 250,000 guaranteed instead of 13 million. And so it was framed as he signed it was like a 2-year deal worth 13 million annually. And I think, how did he get like $26 million when the second year, when it's the same amount he was making roughly.
Yeah.
And the second year is really only worth 250,000. So if he plays well, they have him and can keep him. And if he doesn't, or someone takes the spot, then you move on from it for Kenny Caraway chump change.
Well, that's not what that is at all.
Well, then they also went out and signed Valanciunas and drafted a center with the number 2 overall pick. Yeah. So yeah, kind of a weird situation for him.
Valanciunas took a pay cut for the first time in his career.
He did. Also, did I read it right, or hopefully I didn't get chatty house? Sasha's gone, right? Like, Sasha's going, but is that not true?
There was a lot of talk that he's negotiating with Olympiacos, but one of the reporters from the Raptors came out and said, "Hey, look, he's under contract next year, and everyone expects him in Toronto to be back. If he wants to walk away from his $6.7 million, they probably would be fine with that. But at the same time, the Kings couldn't take that risk and not knowing, and they probably had discussions with him before about what his ideas were, because I mean, he's under contract. He was under contract with the Kings before they traded him. So I'm glad, like, look, it wasn't going to work out, and you needed longer, more athletic players. That's it. Like, again, Jalen McDaniels isn't a better player than Sasha Vezzenkov, but he probably will fit a better role here in Sacramento in what limited time he gets on the court.
In 2 seconds, so you're saying when he was with the Kings, when he's under contract and all those stories were coming out, it was kind of a concern maybe for the Kings that he'd try to leave and go back to Europe?
No, he has no way to do that. Just like he had no way to leave Europe and come to Sacramento without paying his buyout. So he would have had to negotiate with the Kings, and maybe it would have worked out. Maybe the Kings could have got him to leave for nothing, but probably not. And so you would have had to pay more money on the way out the door. And a lot of times that it just creates like more trouble than it's worth. So I think the Kings knew exactly what his plans were, and his plans were to be in the United States, or at least in the NBA, because he's no longer in the United States, but to play in the NBA next season, and they didn't want to pay the money, and so they traded him.
Does anything happen by the time we get here tomorrow at 10 a.m.?
Man, I hope so. Because you know what Wednesday is.
It's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen in the middle of
you know what Wednesday is.
Wednesday's today, everybody.
So for those, for those, this is for everybody. It's a weird schedule for all of us. We're all here tomorrow. We got you 10 to 4. And then the station shuts down for a few days. We're not here Wednesday. We're at a
trust fall,
a mandatory company retreat. Thursday is the 4th. Friday, we're just not here. And so, I'm not going to speak for Thursday or Friday, but if something happens on Wednesday, just head over to your favorite streaming platform. Like, we'll be there. We'll figure it out. We've already, have let all parties know Kimberly has our back here. But hopefully Monty doesn't do that to us. I'll be convinced Monty hates us if that winds up happening. And then if Monty does something on the 4th of July, it's because he hates America.
Well,
Like clearly. Or barbecues.
Like he hates mothers.
Science.
Well, he does. He doesn't like mothers. We all know that. Luke Walton will attest to that. Well, I said today would either be heartbreaking or exhilarating, and it turned out to just be boring. So,
until James started showing some skill.
Well, and that was exhilarating. That was exhilarating.
We're almost at 6
tomorrow. Oh,
we're almost
boy,
at 6,000.
We're almost at 6. This is crazy. It's crazy.
$10 a month
James,
for the next.
All right.
For the next one.
We're signing off the radio, and James is showing a nipple. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. on ESPN 1320.
Vamos, Gigantes.